"Leave him alone!" Livvy screamed. "Stop!" The grips of the two porters to either side of her bit into her arms as she tried to shake them off. Her mind struggled to find the Spanish. "Alto!" she wailed. "Alto!" But it was no use. She and SK had been taken completely by surprise. Their supposed guide, Ichik, and the third porter seemed not to hear her. Rope had appeared from nowhere and they'd set about their task. Trussed up like a parcel, SK lay on his stomach next to the water-filled sinkhole. "Por favor!" she pleaded. "Please! Alto!" No one had said a word, but it was clear what they intended. But why? Livvy yanked her right arm free and bolted forward, only to swing abruptly to the left and feel a fist land in her midsection. The air rushed from her lungs with a strangled cry of pain as she crashed to her knees. "Liv!" she heard SK yell. "SK!" She clutched her stomach with the free hand and tried to get a breath. As she squeezed her eyes shut to the pain and doubled over, thunder rumbled overhead. "Yes, bring it!" A dangerous heat blossomed in her chest, and the humid air suddenly prickled with desiccation. "Bring a storm! Bring the lightning! Bring something!" But even as she thought it, fear shot through her as a memory of the Hopi mesas flashed into her mind. The lightning strike had been wild, utterly out of control. "But I have to stop them." "Bring it," Livvy muttered. The clearing around them darkened as black clouds covered the sun. Thunder boomed above. As she drew in a ragged, gasping breath, she looked up at SK. His face was turned to her, and for a moment their eyes met. "SK, what have I done?" In the heart of the Guatemalan jungle, miles from any help, Livvy tried to pull free again. Next to her head, she heard a metal snick. A long, pointed, and shiny metal blade appeared in her peripheral vision. A thick rope passed in front of her face. SK looked like he was going to say something, but there was no time. Ichik put the toes of his boot under SK's hip. Their guide paused and turned to her. His plump face was more animated than she'd ever seen it. Ecstasy filled it, even euphoria, and he beamed at her. But as always, when he smiled, all she could see were the jade inlays of his eye teeth. As though he were punting a ball in slow motion, the much larger Ichik launched SK's diminutive body over the edge. "No!" Livvy shrieked as fire erupted in her core. Though not a drop of rain had fallen, lightning sliced from the darkened sky directly overhead and struck the ground between her and the sinkhole. Livvy's eyes shut involuntarily as the concussion of the strike knocked her back. Debris pelted her torso and face even as she sailed backward. With a thudding skid, she landed on her back, and the air was forced from her lungs in a great whoosh. But even before she'd stopped moving, she'd realized her captors were not standing either. She scrambled to her feet, lurched to the sheer edge of the enormous chasm, and dove. As though time slowed, she saw the water in amazing detail. The center was deeply blue-black, transitioning abruptly to turquoise, and then to something like the color of the sky. Ripples in small, mounded, concentric circles were still traveling outward from the place where SK had submerged. Tiny white bubbles erupted in the center, exactly where she was headed. "Hold on, SK!" But as Livvy stretched her hands out in front of her and prepared to hit the water, a new thought gripped her and she gasped. "I don't know how to swim."